Hi, everyone. Here we are. Hi, friends. We are here in the Barcelona Bluegrass Camp 2021, this year online, unfortunately, because, well, you know the reasons why. We'd like to be all together, but it's not possible. So we're having these wonderful workshops. We had yesterday the fiddle workshop. We had a banjo and mandolin workshop today. And today we're having this fantastic guitar, bluegrass guitar workshop dedicated to Tony Rice. You'll see. Uh, Before we start, I'd like to mention one thing. We, as many of you might know, we have a raffle tomorrow. Tomorrow at 19 Central European Time will be the raffle. The prizes are fantastic. The first prize is 1 year in Artist Works, any instrument you choose. Okay, if you know Artist Works, you know that it's fantastic. And the second and the third prize are a microphone from VS Audio Systems. This is a microphone specially designed for acoustic instruments. They're made of condenser microphones. They just stick to your acoustic instrument, whether it is a guitar, a fiddle, a mandolin, or whatever, and that's it. You're amplified. Okay? So I'll leave you with Luis Gomez.
Thank you, Jorge. Now it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to me to introduce the guy is going to introduce Chris. So it's really funny this streaming Bluegrass Camp. So I think we are honored to have Christopher Howard Williams. Hi, Christopher. We are really happy to have you, and he's the director of La Roche. He's supporting bluegrass in Europe for many, many years. So we are honored. It's a privilege to have him at the Barcelona Bluegrass Camp. Thank you, Christopher, and I let you introduce the other Chris.
Okay, thank you, Luis, and it's an honor and a real privilege for me to be a part of this show and to introduce this guy who's going to do the guitar workshop. He's been to La Roche Bluegrass Festival, I think, 3 times to play and 1 time just to hang. And he's really a beautiful guy, and he's so interested in everything and so interesting. And he's a great guitar player. I've seen him playing electric guitar, rock and jazz and bluegrass. And today he's going to do some stuff on Tony Rice. So let me introduce my really good friend, originally from Seattle, now living, I think, in New York. Is that right, Chris?
Yep, you got it right. Here I am.
My dear friend, Chris Luquette, to give a guitar workshop for all you guys. Chris.
Oh. Yay! Woohoo! Oh, thank you, Christopher. I made a wonderful joke a moment ago about how this workshop is defined by 3 languages, 2 Christophers, and 1 guitar right now. But hopefully you have your guitar with you. And if you don't, go grab it. And I want to thank everybody at Al Ras Festival and Barcelona Bluegrass Camp for hosting this today. I think it is so important that music and culture is shared around the world. And I'm as a bluegrass musician, I'm really excited that bluegrass music has made it all around Europe. And specifically, I'm so in love with everything that's happening in France and in Spain these days. And La Roche and Al Ras are such a big part of that. So congratulations, guys. I'm so happy to be doing this and to be a part of such a wonderful group of musicians that are doing Rafael and Martino doing workshops and everybody else. What a treat. So I hope you'll grab your guitar. Our theme today, specifically for the guitar, is I would definitely say, number 1 idol in bluegrass and acoustic music is none other than Tony Rice, who tragically passed away on Christmas Day, December 25th, 2020. And it was kind of an amazing moment when I realized that for 3 to 5 solid days on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything was Tony Rice tributes and everybody sharing a moment of their favorite Tony Rice interaction or their favorite Tony Rice piece of music, or their favorite song he did, or their favorite version of his band, or it was just overwhelming, unbelievable, because we already knew how great he was. We already knew that he was sort of the number one hero among us, and everybody loved him so much, and his music touched us so deeply. So it was another touching moment just to see that love on the internet, in our ears, in our brains, in our hands, just coming out was quite amazing. And just like every iconic musician who passes, he may have passed, but his music will live on forever. Generations will be studying because he set the bar, and it'll never get better. It'll only get different. And we are just so amazed at what he did. And I think something that I strive for in my playing that he did in his, which was to take multiple influences and to put them into one package, because he sounded so much like himself. And then there are moments where you'll hear something, say, oh, there's a nice nod to Clarence White, or there's a nice nod to Doc Watson. And then for me, I would go and I would immediately run into those musicians' music and try and learn everything I could from them. So it's just unbelievable what he was able to do. The bands he was a part of, the Tony Rice unit, the classic albums. To this day, if somebody asked me what's one bluegrass album that I could learn the most from, there's a lot, naturally. But if I had to hand them just one on the moment, you hand them Manzanita. And you tell them, hey, listen to this with headphones. Take an hour of time and just listen. Listen deeply with your eyes closed, and it'll put you on another level. It's hard to describe in English or in any other language how wonderful that music is and was. So anyway, as far as ideas, I wanted to start out with, of course, he is well known as being one of the hottest lead players of all time. Oh, and before I forget, I got a lot of ideas here. We can chase a few ideas down. Luis reminded me that my tribute to Tony early in January, and I just used my personal Facebook page for what it's worth. But I found some moments on some tracks that I specifically love. I'll try the best as I can to remember as the day goes on here. But if you're curious, you can find me on Facebook, Chris Luquette, and you can go back to early January, late December, early January on the timeline. And for almost every day, for about a month, I tried to post something. There was a lot of David Grisman quintet stuff, a lot of Tony Rice unit stuff. And I just tried to focus on certain timestamps, bluegrass album band stuff, and just take a listen to those. Grab your headphones, have a good time, and you will be amazed. So he is very famous, like I said, for being a red-hot lead player. And just some of the vocabulary and some of the things that he would do are just so iconically Tony. It's done my heart some really wonderful feelings in the last maybe 5 years or so that the next generation of players has really delved into his rhythm styles. And that's something to really pay attention to. So I think that's obvious. I think we all know that he's such an iconic rhythm guitar player, but it is worth saying over and over again. And I also want to put one little preface on this workshop. I am not personally a Tony Rice clone. There are a lot of those in the world, and they are wonderful musicians. I have taken some of his ideas and internalized them, worked them into my playing, and I love, because I work them into my playing because they're so great, and you can build off them. And you hear, when you analyze his rhythm playing and lead playing, you hear his tributes to older musicians. You hear him taking the next step. So I definitely encourage you to, take some things of his, work it into your material, work it into your songs, and have fun with it. That's the biggest, most important thing here. I always start in any workshop, but I also think that it's important with Tony's workshop is to make sure that your rhythm is fundamentally sound, because that's the biggest thing. This headphone's so funny. That's the biggest thing about his playing when you listen to it is it's flashy, it's powerful, not a single note is wasted. Everything matters. But it's very defined. It's very fundamentally sound. And that's something to really work on at any stage, whether you're a beginner or an advanced player, making sure that your fundamentals are sound and they work. In the bluegrass band context, the rhythm guitar is kind of like the glue. It's kind of like the piano roll right in the middle. It's really important to fill in that spot. You've got the bass player playing the low part, the mandolin playing the chop, the guitar player fits right in the middle. So something very simple that we all already do, but is to really master your boom check rhythm. And this is going to help you really work on Tony's playing because a lot of this is built off of that. And what I mean by that is make sure your bass notes are defined. So if you take a G chord, G note, strum, D note, strum. Oh, my mic is not overdriving. Very simple rhythm. A lot of us already know that. A lot of us already play that. But that is what you build off things. So I really want to, let's take a few minutes and build on that and build some things into it. I think what's really important is you'll notice with Tony when you watch his right hand is that it's very loose and relaxed. That when he needs to pinpoint a G run or pinpoint a lick or a bass run to get to a new chord, his hand goes right there. And I think a lot of that is because when he's playing rhythm, he's not overly tight. I believe that for the most part, I think he kind of kept quite a flow. I think that's another great thing about the boom chuck is you can really create a nice flow here. And so as far as like kind of more general bluegrass guitar knowledge, try not to waste a lot of motion on your right hand. That's something that a lot of players will do, and a lot of people trying to master Tony Rice's style. It's hard to overcome that. It's hard to play like he does if your arm is moving too far or your arm is doing too much back and forth upstrokes and all that kind of stuff. I think it's really important to be able to have a nice, relaxed, but tight motion. So when I play a downstroke, somewhere down in the middle one, not too far. The other nice controlled motion is on those bass notes, you'll notice. I really want to make sure those pop out, but I don't want to be like totally crunching down too hard, right? I have a nice, loose, relaxed feel over on the right hand. So that is really important. So I would practice that at a nice tempo, make sure that's nice and even across the board. You really want to make sure that you can hear those bass notes. And when you dig into his playing, when you have headphones on, you'll notice that right away. You'll notice you'll be able to hit those. Nice defined bass notes, and you'll also notice right away that his tone. I think there's probably not another guitar player in bluegrass with a more iconic tone. And he's pretty recognizable. You hear it and you know right away, wow, what a touch. And I think a lot of good tone, especially on rhythm, comes from that being loose and relaxed, and being able to monitor that. So making sure your boom chuck is nice and sound on all your chord shapes. That's your great starting spot. All right, a little more exciting, something that I know that we probably have worked on before in other workshops, but I am a immense fan of the Tony Rice style accented upstroke is what I would call it. So that's probably the biggest thing about his playing is his use of dynamics and kicks and pulls and punches. That's a huge thing that should be paid attention to. And that's something I work on with the rhythm, with the boom chuck rhythm, is you want to practice, because this is something he had built into his right hand, and a lot of players did, Clarence White as well, is you want to be able to be as dynamic as possible. That's something you'll notice across the board is any band that Tony Rice was in or any video you see, the dynamics are through the roof. Big highs, low lows, the dynamic range, it's unbelievable. So that's another thing you can do when you're listening to his music is pay attention to the dynamics. Be listening to when it's loud, when it's quiet. He was one of the best ever at accenting with vocals. So one of the ways to do that is with your upstroke. I usually start with working in one upstroke, which would be on a G chord. Like even there, just for an example, I'm using dynamics. I play a little softer, playing the upstroke a little louder so you can hear it better. But that's something you're going to want to do in your own playing too. Very important. So again, I'm starting with it on the second half of the measure. Boom, chuck, boom, chuck. C chord. Probably my favorite way to accent that and to work that into my playing in a fun way is to work on your dynamics again. This time, instead of necessarily playing the upstroke harder, play your downstrokes a little softer. Immediately there, you can feel you're still getting that forceful forward motion, chug-a-lug kind of bluegrass rhythm, really powerful. But now you're kind of accenting on different parts of the beat. And Tony got to a point where he practically was kind of improvising with this kind of stuff. And that's where you want to get to in your playing, and I'm still striving to get there in mine, is where you are working these things into your playing, your upstrokes, your downstrokes, your dynamics range, all of that stuff. You can start improvising with it. Really takes your playing to the next level. Super fun and important. So one more time on that with the accented upstroke. And actually, I'll slow that down just for a second so you can see what's happening with my right hand here. There's that little accent. And I'm not trying to really pull the strings off. I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to control, nice controlled, relaxed motion, get a little extra. I think it's worth noting too that I'm pulling that upstroke on basically just the top 4 strings. You're not really trying to catch all of them. Just trying to catch that. It's easier. Sounds good. So what do I mean by Tony Rice being the master vocal fill guy is check out the first example I always give for this is the first recording of, the first recording of Bluegrass Album Band, but the first track on the first album, the Brown album, Blue Ridge Cabin Home, I think it's in B flat, but listen to the dynamic range on that. Listen to Tony's guitar, J.D. Crow's banjo. Listen to how those work together, how they come to an end of the line. Far away in my Blue Ridge cabin. And those extra kicks right into those swells. It's like an ocean effect. The tide comes in, it recedes. It's amazing. I think some of that is just the single upstroke. There might be a little bit of a double. Where I'll add another upstroke. 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4. So that's a little busier now. But when you accent that upstroke, you can still maintain clearness. It won't sound totally like mush if you accent the upstroke. Again, that works better if you crescendo into it, softer on the beginning. 2, 3. You'll also notice that D string on the alternating bass still rings out. You know, that's still in there, even though you're on a crescendo. So where would you put that? Like I said, check out the end of a line, check out in the middle of a verse, right after a chord change too sometimes. How do you get there? Again, like I mentioned a minute ago, just start with building on your upstroke. 1, 2, 3, and 1. You don't want it to swing too much. You don't want it to drag too much. You just want it to be a nice, trying to find the right word. You just want it to be a kick. Really, that's a classic bluegrass word. Get that kick into the rhythm. I hope that translates. At any rate, that's something that is key to understanding his playing, the dynamic range of movement on the upstroke. The next thing I would add to that is he managed to always have a very classic approach to kind of opening up his chords. There's not a really great way to describe this with words. I've heard people kind of say arpeggiate the chords. Maybe even building a little cross-picking in. It'll make sense once we do it. And what I mean by that is he's very famous for kind of, like I said, opening it up a little bit. Another rhythm figure of his that I love that you can mix and match is sort of a building off a G chord. Right here. Just a little up to speed for your reference. Right? So you can hear that I'm kind of picking on the right hand notes of the G chord. I'll explain this in a moment. I usually start out with the G power chord, the bluegrass power chord. That's always a good place to start with his playing. You can do other G chords. In fact, the next rhythm figure after this I'll show you is actually built off of this G chord. But for now, bluegrass power chord. What I mean by picking up the G is, so one of the things that he would do was play a downstroke rhythm. So that's an open A, then your B string, open A, then the second fret is a B note, and then open D, open G. I would need to look at a video of him. I usually do it with alternating picking. That's kind of where everything starts with me, but keep an eye out for that. So slowed down. So on a boom check rhythm, it happens in place of the D strum, the second beat, I suppose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So if you speed this up a little bit, right hand should still be nice and relaxed. You'll also notice this is helping create a little bit of a flow on the right hand. That's another kind of word that we all kind of associate with Tony Rice. Is his right hand just had a magnificent flow to it. Really, really unbelievable. All right, so building that into our rhythm. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This serves as a really great transition from any chord to any chord, actually. G to C. 1, 2, 3. Back to G. So I don't mean to rush ahead, but I do want to kind of play some of these things up to speed so you can kind of hear it in context. So again, if I transition from G to C, C back to G, you can do the same thing. Really great transition. You would hear him use quite a bit, kind of stuff like this. So what happens if you go to D? I kind of like it from D to G more than I like C to G. What happens if you do this as a C chord idea? Do it there too. So I like building chord progressions. I like practicing chord progressions, even as simple as G, C, and D, making sure that I'm keeping that downstroke going and then working this arpeggio kind of thing in there. 2, 2, 3. What happens if you add dynamics to that? What happens if you accent just that arpeggio? That is a really useful tool. Super fun. Again, it kind of opens up. You're almost, to me, even though it's a guitar lick, it kind of fills the role of a piano to me. It just really adds a nice, deep warmth to the music, while you're still not losing that drive at all either. It still has that nice, forceful movement. Now, what if I do that and I add that upstroke we put in there? Right? So you're starting to combine, you're starting to get ideas, you're starting to weave in through the vocals, or even somebody else's solo. You're kind of conversing with the other soloist. It's really cool concepts. I also think if you listen really deeply to Tony's playing, you're going to hear this stuff. It's going to jump out at you right away. Really fun. At the end of that last example, I found another rhythm kick of his that I absolutely adore. You hear this a lot more maybe in his early playing because he was tempted to play open G a little bit more than the bluegrass power chord G. But he used it later on too, and I'll show you a couple of different ways to do this. The first way, which is just natural, which is if you transition back to your G. This is my preferred G. I know a lot of people will play this G or even this G. If you transition for a moment just from this G is useful with your third finger on the low G and your pinky on the high G. That's useful for this rhythm figure. I hear this a lot in early folk music, a lot of Bob Dylan recordings, very popular, even blues. I think it's kind of rooted in Delta blues, which is really fun. But it's just the concept of playing G and then putting your fingers down, leaving your third finger as a G, but putting your middle finger and your first finger down like a C chord. You get a little almost suspended sound for a moment. catching the C, partial C on the downstroke, picking it up and catching the G chord on the upstroke. So again, when you play that at that tempo with that kind of vibe, you can hear that it's more of a folky kind of vibe. You can hear early bluegrass, a lot of Jimmy Martin in there too. But fast forward to adding that to our other rhythm figure. Right here at the end of this. Very classic Tony Rice vibes right there. Right? So that's one of my other favorite kicks of his. Another really good one, it's going to make a lot more sense if you add dynamics to it. You know, you kick that up as an accent. Quiet and back in. Right? Just kind of a nice 1-2 punch there. It's really fun. This position also serves as the basis to one of the greatest intros that he ever did. It's on his first album, Guitar. Great title. About 1975, I think. Freeborn Man is the first cut, and he plays a lot of fancy open position blues licks while he's singing, and then he comes in with a riff. And the banjo kicks in right there. Nice big fat pinch. It's perfect. But this is the basis of this, which is building off this position, your open G, and then your partial C. Now the next part of that is a G7 will require one little finger change, which is bringing your third finger down to play a D note on the B string. By the way, the open G is open the whole time. And your middle finger is sliding to a F natural. So that's a G7, right? If you add a low G, very common chord. So it's a very common walk down to go G7, C, open G. That is another incredibly important point is Tony Rice was a master of tension and release. And you can hear that. Even if I play it with rubato with no rhythm, you can just hear that needs to go somewhere. And it releases to G. So this is a really, really powerful riff. So what's happening here? There's two ways to do this. I'll show you them both. The first one is the actual intro to Freeborn Man, where he starts that. He starts up high. In fact, I'd need to listen to it again, but I think he starts from a fret below and slides into it. And there's that big kick open upstroke. 1, 2, 3. It's the more I think about it, it's almost like a Jimmy Smith organ lick. You can add this to the boom chuck rhythm too. 1, 2, 3. But do you see how when I release that from the C, I do grab this G chord because I want to hit that accent. And then I can transition back to that closed G position, that power chord, if you will. So one more time, up to speed, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a pickup note vibe. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's what he did on the beginning of Freeborn Man. He would build on that and add that to an accent of a G chord rhythm. still based off the boom chuck. So now we're getting into a little bit of funky phrasing here. You can hear that he's accenting on upstrokes or on the offbeat too, which is cool. Very funky, very bluesy, very rootsy. Another great example of, it's bluegrass guitar, but it is that next level. It is combining other things. So what do I mean by that? If I transition from the G chord, power chord, E4, so you can hear how there's a kind of a half step, or excuse me, a half note there. 1 and 2 up to speed. All of this is accomplished by having a nice smooth right hand. You will notice, like I said, his ability to pinpoint licks and pinpoint his right hand to get phrases, very important. So this is a good example of that. Like right there, it's a downstroke with not a lot of extra motion. And even some of this is kind of bouncing back and forth off the G string. Or off the low G, excuse me. I think you've heard me say it already. I'd like to say it again. This riff will make so much more impactful meaning if you are able to use dynamics with it and really up and bring up the volume, bring it down. You can play it at one volume, certainly while you're practicing. But if you really kick some accents in there, that's really cool. So check that one out. Have fun with that. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because we're just doing an hour workshop today, but Tony Rice's mastery of the G run. And I studied this a little bit more recently, which is the use of downstrokes on his G run. It's almost a Lester Flat style continuous downstroke. Something that Wyatt Rice has talked about on tapes and on workshops is that the kind of the Rice golden rule was that your G run needs to be one of the strongest things you can do musically. When you lay that, because it's really funny to think that bluegrass music has such a strong identity around one core riff. And I think every instrument's got one. I think the banjo's got its Earl Scruggs lick. The mandolin's got some Monroe licks. And for the guitar, that Lester Flat G run is it. So you really want to make sure there's a million ways to play it. So I would suggest finding your favorites, taking a listen, figuring out what they are. But your right hand needs to really lay into it. There's another technical term in the English language for bluegrass music is when you're playing a G run, lay into it. Or even just again, accent it. You don't want it to just blend in. You really want that G run to stick out. So that takes a controlled motion. That takes a right hand controlled motion, but you can't kill the strings. The moment you try and kill it, that's when you're going to hit wrong notes. You're going to hit the B string. You're going to do all sorts of stuff. So you do want to practice getting your G run as loud, as full. You want to make sure it has good tone. I think you'll notice that. Lester Flat, Jimmy Martin, Tony Rice, Clarence White, anytime they hit a G run, it was just like a freight train of tone just hit you right in the head. You'll also notice that it fits in, a downstroke G run fits in perfectly with the accented upstrokes. It is it's a match made in heaven. It's just really, really great. Those are my kind of get you started Tony Rice rhythm ideas. There are millions of them. Like I mentioned earlier at the beginning, on my personal Facebook page, Chris Luquette, there's a link for it in the comment. Yes, Del McCurry is another really important G-Run aficionado. In fact, Del McCurry would have been heard, Tony Rice would have been hearing him at those times, playing festivals on the East Coast. They would have run into him. So that's also really important. Good catch, good comment. So a lot of ideas. Like I mentioned on my Facebook page, I put a lot of ideas of Tony's in. I put them kind of through a critical listening in my ears and did some stuff like that for a while. So what do I mean by critical listening? When I got deep into learning Tony Rice stuff, I found that one of the biggest helpful things is, knowing some of these positions, but it's harnessing the idea, the energy, the intent of some of these ideas. So what I did on Facebook as kind of a tribute was I used some recordings that I didn't think a lot of people were mentioning. The first thing that people post, it's the Old Home Place from 0044, J.D. Crowe in the New South, of course, Tony Rice Records, Manzanita. But I went in deeper and I found some things that I hadn't really listened to deeply. And I, like I said, refer to that list on Facebook. It's not all on my head today. But one I would urge you to check out today is actually something from his later career. He did 2 albums with, he formed a band with Peter Rowan. So the Peter Rowan Tony Rice Quartet. They did You Were There For Me and an album called Quartet. And both albums are marvelous. And I would urge you to check out the Quartet album if you're looking for something to put on while you're having a nightcap tonight and having a good time practicing these things. And there's a couple of tracks, the very famous Peter Rowan song Midnight Moonlight, of course, another one of Peter's tunes, Dust Bowl Children, and they do an instrumental version of Shady Grove. It's really wonderful. But pay attention. So listen to it for enjoyment. But then when you decide to work on some of these ideas as a player, listen to what's happening. Really notice the dynamics. Really notice the positions. Sometimes, like on Shady Grove, he plays an A minor. But sometimes Tony Rice plays an A minor chord like that, or even like that. Start to kind of use your ears to hone in on some of these ideas. And then you'll kind of go, well, maybe I don't know what that chord is yet, but you'll notice that there are different voicings. So don't have a lot of time to get into it, but that's something I would write down is check out Tony Rice chord voicings. So again, a big difference in the G major chord, this version versus this, also happens on minor chords. He played a lot of minor chords where he would play up higher on the neck, play his minor chords more of like a minor 7th type vibe, or the classic D minor that everybody plays when they're playing electric guitar. All your Dire Straits songs are here, which is awesome. Tony Rice, when he played with David Grisman, started playing a lot more of stuff like this. You can hear the difference. D minor 9th. So check out David Grisman quintet stuff. Check out a recording live at the American Music Hall. All of the recordings great. What about Dog's Rag? Later on tonight, go, oh my gosh, that's incredible. It might have 1,000 crazy chords. Tony's really expanding his musical knowledge at that point. But just notice the dynamics. He internalized those dynamics that he learned in a bluegrass category and pulled them over and interpreted those into more of a jazzy kind of dog music kind of style. So I've got my D note on the 5th fret, F note on the 3rd fret of the D string, and then C and E. So that's just another chord voicing. Work that into the next time you play a song in D minor. Maybe your friend sings Shady Grove and you're playing it. Shady Grove. Maybe now you play Shady Grove. Tony Rice, master of the chord voicing. He worked a lot of that into rhythm. So, a million ideas, not a lot of time. That's the way it goes. But hopefully this will give you some stuff to chew on, some really fun stuff to pull on. I had another rhythm lick in mind. I won't break it down theory-wise too long. He also used tempo and timing more. He was probably one of the greatest at internalizing time. Like he almost had an inner metronome in his ears. Maybe that was in his head. Maybe that was why he got into watches, something about timing. But his internal tempo created a lot of great tension and release from even just simple bass runs. Like one of my very favorite G to C movements. Where does that start? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Right? Okay, so that's starting on an A note. I'm reaching from a G chord all the way up to an A note. Pull off. Then an E to a G. And then a quick little E flat pull off. Land on your C chord. So what do I mean by Tony using different timing? That when he lands on the C note, sometimes this is kind of more of a Clarence White kind of vibe here, is sometimes he would land on that C chord early. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. But sometimes he would land on it straight. So you start to mix with that. When you land on it early, it almost creates a tension and release somehow. Like the release is early. It's just amazing, right? And the timing on grabbing the first note on the A is also interesting. So I'll play that a little higher in tempo to hear the timing of that. 1, 2, 3. And now add that combined with the other things. 1. There's a million phrases like this, and I wish I could show them all to you. If you're curious on this, anywhere in the world, I can do private lessons via Skype and Zoom, just so you know. But things like that, they come from Dell, they come from Jimmy Martin, they come from Clarence White, which, by the way, if you are in love with Tony Rice's playing like I am, listening to as much Clarence White as possible. There's some really incredible live Kentucky Colonels albums. One of them live in Holland, another one live in Sweden. There's that European bluegrass connection again. But yeah, internalizing as much Clarence White as well, because that's what Tony was listening to. Really wonderful stuff. I know that was a long explanation of getting into his rhythm. You'll also notice that in general, bluegrass guitar is about 95% rhythm, if not more. But lead guitar, Tony Rice was iconic. His approach to solos was very bluesy, very rootsy, very organic, very powerful, and iconically him. I think a lot of us will also notice that not always the most melodic player, but that wasn't a bad thing. In his realm, he navigated chord changes perfectly to the point where you never really needed to worry about where the melody was. Somebody was always going to be referencing it in some way. If I had to show you one thing to get you started on mastering his style, maybe it's two things. Maybe I would say really work on your up and down picking. It's alternating picking. The downstroke does play a little bit more of an important role, but your upstroke will balance that, will really help out your phrasing, because you'll notice his phrasing tends to be long sequences, a lot of continuous streams of 16th notes, always adding perfect space where it needed to be, but really phrasing things beautifully. But I would start with a minor pentatonic scale, which is kind of a scale that's kind of used for instant music when it comes to playing blues and rock and roll. It's kind of one of the first things you might find on bluegrass or on guitar websites of any style. And in G minor pentatonic, and this resource you can find on the internet in lots of places, but starting on the lowest note G, using your pinky for a B flat, then a C note, then a D note with your third finger, F, G, B flat, C, a D, and then your pinky again for F, and then you can play your high B flat if you want. But once more, G, B flat, C, D, F, G. There's your first octave, B flat. Now, it is a minor scale. It's a minor pentatonic. There's a very funny rule in music, not rule, but a really funny harmony in music is that playing a minor scale like this over a major chord will create a bluesy sound, will create a kind of a rock and roll sound, which is why it's kind of one of the first scales so many guitar players learn. Instant music. Doesn't work so well if you play a minor scale over major. That's not really a big, a minor, major scale over minor. Not really a big point to be made right now, but it's that minor pentatonic scale. Why is that so important? Especially in this position. This is what I personally consider the first position, because everything else is built off of this, even going this way. But the first position, why is it so important? Because once I start improvising with it, it's instant Tony Rice. And you can get even more instant Tony Rice, and that's not a pun. I'm not trying to make a funny instant rice joke. Instant Tony Rice is by adding one note to that. Would be adding the blue note or the flat 5 if we're talking intervals, or a C sharp. So going up the scale, it's on your middle finger on the A string, and then on your pinky on the G string. More time going from low to high. C sharp, C sharp. Okay, now what do I mean by this being classic Tony Rice? Add that note to anything. There is a classic Tony Rice position. That is, I'm kind of thinking of some of his licks like this. Sliding from C to D, and now you're in that minor pentatonic position. And then maybe this B flat becomes a B natural and an open G. There's another great counterpoint of his playing that's amazing. Down C sharp to C, then up B flat to B. I would experiment with that. I would check that out. I would mess around with it, see what happens, see what you can find. One of my other favorite ideas I heard, where he actually landed on that. Very spooky, very kind of bluesy, gritty kind of thing. It was really fun. So the next thing I would do after that, so that's minor pentatonic, G minor pentatonic. It's G minor because your first finger on this position is your root note. So you can move that anywhere. You can play that in B flat. a very movable scale. It's, like I said, instant music. So do that. The next one I would do is actually the open position version. So here, your G is on your third finger, and it's all the same notes, but just repositioned to the open zone. So G to B flat, C, C sharp, and then open D. So from G to open D. And then open F note to G. And then from G, B flat, C, and then your C sharp is here. D, F, G. So how about from the low G, slow? So what happens now? So now we memorize that. So sorry, gotta warm up. All right, that also has those C sharps. Why are those C sharps important? Why is this position important? This is where this stuff comes from. I mean, I don't think there's a musician that plays bluegrass that can't hear that stuff and not say, oh, that's a cool kind of Tony Rice vibe, you know? Might not be something he played, literally, but it's very much in his style, right? So now if you can get those two minor pentatonic positions memorized, and full disclosure, there's 5 of them, so you can now learn the next 3 going up high, which he would also do. But now you can almost play a full Tony Rice improvisational style just by combining those two and paying attention to where your transition points are. Something to get you started. Start on G and walk up. I mean, that's an iconic riff right there. And then maybe going down, instead of going down chromatically or going down the scale, what if you skip straight to the C sharp? That's another great aspect, adding in your pull-offs. Pull off to F, C sharp, pull off to C. And then how about B flat to B? That right there, just complete improvisation using just those 2 scales. And, you know, you're working on your right hand, you're working on your left hand, organizing it. It combined, working on those phrasings, just coming up with your own lines, you know. And when you hear those notes, pay attention, like I said, check out Blue Ridge Cabin Home. That's not exactly it, but it's close. You know, listen to where you can hear, oh, I hear that flat 5. I hear that pull off. You know, I hear pull offs. I hear that ascending scale. You know, that kind of stuff can really help you unlock his playing on the bluegrassy side of things. Solos to check out. Of course, there's some stuff in there that'll blow your mind and you might say, oh, I could never learn that. But full disclosure, if you're listening to Album Man stuff, New South material, it's pretty accessible. It might be up tempo, might be full bluegrass tempo. But once you realize you've got this minor pentatonic scale, he did use a few other scales, shapes, you know, but for the most part, this is a really great starting spot. This is a really good zone to jump off from, to plan ahead to get to the next level. Check out that Blue Ridge Cabin Home. A lot of ideas in the open position. Their version of Your Love is Like a Flower has a very nice second position scale. The intro to Freeborn Man is a lot of this. Minor pentatonic vibes. So you'll hear it evolve too. Later on, he started working more major pentatonics. It's the same scale, except starting on this string. Combining minor pentatonic and major pentatonic. Right? So it's not necessarily super important that you learn those exact riffs note for note or those leads note for note. But if you have those couple of positions on lockdown, if you can sit there and play kind of full tempo and get comfortable with that, you're going to really find some things in there that you're going to love. So I think we'll let it off there. We're right about 2:00 my time. But I want to mention one last thing before we bring all of our Al Ras friends back in here. For everybody who's trying to get into Tony Rice, I highly recommend, and I had my copy right next door, Still Inside, the Tony Rice Story, written by Tim Stafford and Caroline Wright. Best place to buy this, and this is in the United States. I hope it's the same in Europe. It might be a little more shipping, but check out Tim Stafford's website, Tim Stafford Guitar or Tim Stafford Music online. Tim Stafford, of course, plays in Blue Highway, is an amazing songwriter. But about 10 years ago, he put his story into this book. Really important that you check this out. For me, I think one of the most important things about that book is how much reference they make to his influences and to people to listen to, too. So thank you, Tony Rice. We are indebted to you for the rest of our lives for making the music that you made. And singing, I think we all know that Tony Rice was one of the greatest vocalists of all time as well in bluegrass and acoustic music. So there we go. I hope everybody's having a good time. Here they come,
Hey.
Al Ras.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Salud.
Salute.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Bravo.
Awesome.
That was fantastic, Chris.
Oh,
I
I'm so
enjoyed
happy
it.
to hear it. Wonderful.
Bravo.
Good. You have a guitar in
Nice.
your hands. Yes.
Yeah, I've
Good.
been trying to emulate you. It's not easy. It's not easy to emulate you, and it's not easy to emulate Tony Rice. But you gave me some very good ideas. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I'll use them.
We have a joke in the United States. Hope maybe it's there too, but everybody says if it was easy to do, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
But no,
that's the
I
point.
always encourage everybody to
That's the
try it,
point.
to do it, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're just going to practice a lot, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, let me mention that as a banjo players, we learn a lot from Tony Rice, and I love that lick that you.
Oh. Yep.
I love that lick from Tony. Sorry for
Well,
the sound.
it's all minor pentatonic.
Yeah. I love that break from that lick from Tony Rice. I think it's great. It's awesome. It's killer.
It's also good for banjo player because it has a lot of open strings.
Yes, exactly. So let me say to the people who are watching, hey, do you have any question to Chris, please? Because we did the 1 hour workshop. So ask any question on the chat if you want. If not, we are going to hang out a little bit, talking with Christopher from La Roche and with Chris, with Jorge and Joan Manuel. And then we are going to finish the workshop, and we are going to close the teacher series of the Barcelona Bluegrass Camp. So guys, if you want to ask to Chris, please. And please support the festival, and also buy tickets for the raffle. You guys
Raffle tickets.
Yeah, I forgot. I mentioned the raffle before, but I forgot to say that if you want to buy tickets for the raffle, you have to make a donation to alrasfestival@gmail.com, alrasfestival@gmail.com, and every €5 is one ticket. Yeah, so to €10, 2 tickets. 15 euros, 3 tickets.
Wow.
100,000 euros, we give you the prize automatically.
There you go.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
And this, of course, contributes to Al Ras happening next year again.
Yeah, good. We want it to happen.
Yeah, we want it to happen.
Hopefully in person.
Yes.
All together.
Yeah. I see the first question came on my screen is about delving more into this stuff with me personally on Zoom or Skype. You can contact me, my email, chris@chrisluquette.com, or my website, chrisluquette.com. You can type it in. But yes.
Cool. And well, because we are really lucky to have Christopher from La Roche. If you want to say something, we are honored.
Well, for me, it was really amazing to watch that because it kind of just seems so simple, but it's just, there's so much in there. I'm going to sit and, well, my little arthritic fingers don't really help so much anymore, but I'm going to be working on some of that stuff over the next few days.
Oh, you'll have fun with that.
I have the book and I have a signed copy with Tony Rice and Tim Staple's signature in it. So,
lovely.
Chris, are you
How
lucky?
great.
That's very
great.
Yeah, I remember I was at that time at the IBMA, and I was on the line to be signed for Tony Rice, but it was really long line. I think it was a little bit late, and at that moment, I remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to wait for that signature because it was a big line. But now I'm really sad because I have the book, but not with the signed signature.
That's okay. I understand that. I never met him personally. I saw him perform 3 or 4 times, and it was wonderful. And a lot of people did meet him. He was wonderful.
Yeah. I also wanted to quickly say that I was very fortunate at IBMA a couple of years ago. I put this on the Twitter, on the YouTube feed, to see Chris playing with Peter Run and the Frank Sullivan Dirty Kitchen Band. In the Quicksilver Suite, they played Midnight Moonlight. And it was just an amazing moment because there were about 25 to 40 people in there. Everybody started singing the chorus with them. And then in the middle of the song, Tony just kind of stepped back. And with a benevolent, paternal look from the backstage, he watched all these guys jamming on the solo, on the breaks. The whole of Dirty Kitchen. I think Mark Schatz was there. I can't remember who else came up and played. An awesome moment. And Chris playing some incredible guitar there as well. That was a great. You remember that moment, Chris?
I sure do. We always put our hearts into it, and we had a great time.
Yeah,
yes.
Cool.
Yeah, that was wonderful. IBMA. We looking forward to doing that again soon, right?
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll go this year. I need to go this year. But, it is.
I saw a couple questions come in, Luis. I think we're doing good. We have people. This is wonderful. Hi, everybody. This is the first time I've done a workshop where I only see myself on the screen. So I felt like I was learning from myself. Hey, don't do that. No, I was going to say let's see. Yeah. How does Zoom contact for lessons is my email, chris@chrisluquette.com. Let's see how, oops, I'm losing it. It came off my screen. How do you practice lead lines to be? Does somebody see that? I don't know if I can get that lower.
To be precise,
more rhythmically precise. That's actually a great exercise where I would take that scale. You can do this on single strings, but I would develop your up and down picking on your right hand. So I like to start with my open G string and just do that for a while. Speed it up, because the longer you can sustain that's going to help you lead to more. It all starts over here. Now you can do that with your minor pentatonic scale. Sometimes I'll do multiple strokes on one note. And speed it up, try and get it up. Right? So that's really important to be able to do that kind of stuff. But it's all about getting your right hand built up to do that. And then slow it down too. Like just make sure you can go through that full scale and even start improvising a little bit with it. but making sure you don't break your tempo on your right hand. So you start simple. Just go through the scale and make sure you can do it full speed ahead. And then work on it from there. So just developing your consistent up and down, and using a metronome helps with that, because that's going to build that rhythmic preciseness. And going forward, once you start working on solos, then you'll start to notice that sometimes there's spacing and more phrasing, but it's easier to work that phrasing in once you've built up your right hand stamina and you're not searching, right? So that's what I like to do.
Oh.
And suggestions. I mean, every note that's what suggestions on what to listen to. I think that's one of the problems with Tony, is that every note he ever played was important and amazing. So it's hard to narrow it down. But I think, Clifton put Manzanita, the guitar album, and Rounder 0044, and the tone poems even. Yeah, that's a great start. That'll get you going. Blue Ridge Album Band, any of them. I would start with the first two, you know. But Bela Fleck, his Drive album, Drive, is another, as I think, Luis, you might like that album a little bit. I do too, I know.
I love it. And, the histories about Drive recording is amazing. That
Yes.
Tony arriving the day before and just, picking the tune on the air is amazing. It's amazing. I think Tony writes the best.
Yeah. So, and then maybe in the last couple of decades of his recording career, the Unit of Measure album, which is a Tony Rice unit album. The other Bela Fleck album, the Tales from the Acoustic Planet Bluegrass Sessions. It's really adventurous, really brilliant playing on that. And like I said, the Peter Rowan, the two albums he did with Tony, almost a little more singer-songwriter, just because it has just the material. But the treatment they give those songs, which is a little less bluegrass-oriented, a little more open nature to the material, it's really, really unbelievable. So that's a big list to go. But of course, you want to go farther out. You get into the time that Tony Rice played with David Grisman. And actually, there's an album, I think it's like live, Bluegrass Quintet live in Japan, maybe. It's on David Grisman's acoustic disc album or label, where it's Bill Keith, Richard Green, Todd Phillips, David Grisman, and Tony Rice. And they went to Japan and played a really classic kind of bluegrass band concert that was recorded. It's really cool. And it's very early. It's like right around New South time. So Tony's playing some more early kind of stuff. But that's one I like a lot too, because that's easy to learn from and get some ideas from.
And I suggest to listen the podcast from the Bluegrass Situation. I don't remember. I think Troy Hart interviews with Bela Fleck, David Grisman, Peter Rowan, Sharon Gilchrist, talking about Tony, and it's amazing. To know more about the person, and especially this jazz character of his music. That I love it. Listen a lot of Oscar Peterson, Miles Davis. That then you can understand the music from this guy, from this man. To me, the guitar player, especially rhythm. And always I say, a lot of my friends, guitar players in Spain, they are going to kill me. But I say to them, hey, man, learn to play rhythm.
Yeah.
In Spain, we have a joke that the guitar player is waiting for his solo. And while he's playing rhythm, he's thinking about, okay, I'm going to buy... I'm going to go to the the market, going to buy. I play solo, and then
and
it's a pity, because sometimes in Spain I prefer to not play with a guitar player.
Well, don't worry, I don't ever do that.
No. I remember when you came to Barcelona, and we've been playing. Also, we went to La Roche. I remember Maribel. She told me, "Wow, it's amazing to play with this guy. Such amazing rhythm." Guy playing, because especially Maribel on bass, always she's really worried about the rhythm, the tempo, and all the guitar players in Spain are, as I mentioned, it's not a joke, it's true. They are not supporting, the rhythm. So I think it's a really important part of this music.
It really is. And I hope that some of these workshops are getting that point across, because, well, a bluegrass band, the rhythm is so much more important because you don't have a lot of room to hide. When you're playing string band music, you're all in it. And I'm a big fan of rock and roll, you know, and I'm not saying that any of the great rock and roll bands aren't, each member isn't important, but the rhythm, they always talk about the rhythm section. You get bass and drums, and if they're off, they're gone. You know, the rest of the band, it doesn't matter. And so in bluegrass, it's the same way. You get your bass and your drum is your mandolin, but your guitar fills that role. It also provides part of that. So yeah, it's really important, because two things: if you're a great rhythm guitar player, your band is going to be better, like you say, and your leads are going to be better too. Because if you're rhythmically sound, if you can improvise with offbeats and anticipations and tension and release, all of those aspects come into your solo playing, and you're going to internalize those, right? And I think that's something that Tony Rice had too. Is we always talk about his note choices, but I think the rhythm and his phrasing, it's also very important to when you listen to that. In fact, I would tell everybody to listen to Tony Rice sings and plays bluegrass. The track Thunder Clouds of Love he plays some really crazy stuff, but it's less about what he's playing and more about his timing, his touch, where he lays his stuff. And that's all rhythmic. That's all tempo. That's internalized. So you'll be a better soloist if you play better rhythm.
Yeah. No, thanks. I hope.
Okay, I have a question for you, Chris. At the end of his career, when he couldn't sing anymore, do you think he changed his guitar playing? It seemed to me like he was compensating for not being able to sing by putting more into what he was doing on the guitar. I don't know. He did a thing with Alison Krauss. I think it was bootlegged. I don't know if it was ever released, but he was just playing guitar. It was incredible.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Christopher. That is true. Once he's on a stage performing and he's not worrying about that, the brain power becomes to what to play. And it does get a little, I hate to say busier, but it is, you know, he's playing more stuff. But here's the key: as much effort and brain power as he's putting into what he's playing, he's also putting into playing with the band. And I find that, like, for example, the Quartet album with Peter Rowan, some of the stuff that he's playing, it fits so perfectly with Peter's vocals, Bryn's bass playing, Sharon's mandolin playing. It just, no matter what he plays, it suits the moment. It suits the other musicians. So yeah, when he wasn't singing later on in his career, I do think he played more adventure. I also noticed a lot more chord voicings. He really played a lot more because you had the ability to. Now you're not locked into the comfort position while you're singing, right? So yeah, I think that happens. But unlike what a lot of people do, which is, oh, now I'm not singing, I'm going to play a lot of stuff and get busy. He really paid attention to interacting with the band. And that is so critical. Yeah. And amazing. just amazing.
So I think we can be talking about Tony Rice for many hours. But this is the end of the workshop. If somebody has a last question, or if Jorge or Christopher or Don Manuel, do you want to say something to finish? And then we are going to be...
Thanks to Chris and Chris for being here.
And the guitar also.
It was a pleasure, and I hope we can see in person soon.
I am so excited to come back to Spain when it's safe to do so. I miss you all terribly, and I'm still hungry from last time I was there.
Good food.
Yes,
good wine.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you all, Ross, for doing a weekend camp virtually for people free to see. Hopefully some people, I saw somebody from California was here. Hopefully some people in the United States realize how important it is to have bluegrass musicians in Spain, because beautiful country, beautiful people. Let's have beautiful music.
Just a quick point on that. California Bluegrass Association, in their next newsletter, they're doing an article on European bluegrass, and there's an article that I wrote on Lewis is going to appear, a little bit about his flamenco Spanish kind of style.
Oh, perfect.
In the CPA magazine.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
All right, everybody, have fun practicing.
yeah, thank you very much to all the people watching the Barcelona Bluegrass Camp. See you tomorrow of the raffle. And thanks to you, Chris. Thanks, Jorge. Thanks, Christopher, to be here. And thanks, Juan Manuel. And see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
That's cool.